Koenig was back in that fire-swept passageway, the scene overlaid by flickering numbers giving ranges, angles, and power levels, and by a bright red targeting reticule slaved to Swayze's laser rifle, centered on whatever the rifle happened to be pointed at. At the far end of the passageway, laser and plasma gunfire snapped and hissed from the makeshift barricades. "Grossman! Nobunaga!" Swayze was yelling. "Get that pig in action! Flame those bastards!" Koenig recognized the term. The Marines had a PG-80 as a platoon heavy weapon, a semi-portable plasma gun, nicknamed the Pig and designed to burn through most armor. Swayze was using his laser rifle trying to force enemy troops back from the ambush barricade at the far end of the passageway. Two armored shapes moved up beside him, manhandling the bulky weapon's tripod into place. One of the Marines was hit, his faceplate vaporized by a plasma bolt, so Swayze shoved Grossman's body aside and took up a position next to the gunner, snapping up the heavy fire shield and dragging back the charge lever. He slapped Nobunaga's shoulder, signaling readiness to fire. "Hit him!" Blue-white fire exploded through the dark passageway, charring stone walls already black with age. The barricade at the end of the hall exploded, hurling chunks of molten debris as armored figures scattered or collapsed and lay still. The Pig fired again, blasting a hole in the steel door beyond, and then Swayze was up and running down the stone corridor, firing from the hip, waving his men on. "Let's go, Marines! Hoorah! Hoorah!" The ancient Marine war cry rang out in answer from a dozen throats, raw sound and fury, meaningless except to announce that the USNA Marines were charging, and the enemy troops began throwing down their weapons and raising their arms in surrender. Koenig watched as two more Marines, Jameson and Arkwright, pushed past Swayze as he stopped to hand the prisoners over to another Marine. He then followed the pair over the half-molten ruin of the barricade and through the gaping hole in the steel door. Swayze shouldered his way into the stone chamber beyond, arriving just behind the other two Marines who'd come to a dead stop. A soldier in shifting black and gray nanoflage armor stood with his back to the far wall, clutching a tiny woman in civilian utilities in front of him like a shield. Through Swayze's helmet camera, Koenig recognized the woman. Ilse Rutgen, former Senate President for the Earth Confederation, struggled in the armored man's one-arm grip, her arms zip-stripped behind her back. In his free hand, the man clutched a deadly little 5mm needler, which he kept pressed against the side of her throat. "Stop!" the man yelled, his amplified voice booming off the stone walls. "If you value her life, stop now!" Koenig recognized that voice instantly. It was General Kurosi, the Butcher of Columbus. Swayze ran a voice-print ID through his suit's AI, a process that took only a second or so, and came to the same conclusion. "Put the weapon down, General," he said, his voice level, reasonable, and as cold as ice. "If you kill her, I promise you that you will die, right here, right now." "So, I should surrender so you can put me on trial for war crimes?" Kurosi laughed, an ugly sound. His English carried a thick Hungarian accent. "Crimes against humanity, I think, is the phrase you Americans use. And then you execute me anyway. I don't think so." "Let her go, General. Hurt her and you won't believe how much worse you'll make it for yourself." "There is nothing you can threaten me with worse than what will happen if I give myself up. You understand me?"